two grandmas. Luna is my 2-year-old daughter, and I have to tell you, I was so excited to have this book to read to my daughter, and we got this thing called the F and G, which is the folded and gathered pages. There's no spine, but we got it like, I don't know, maybe like 5 months before the book came out. And my daughter was only like maybe 4 or 5 months old, and I was so excited. I was like, I finally have a daughter that's young, that's like a book that's perfect age for this, this, my daughter. So it's going to be a perfect mix, right? So I sat her in the little reading pocket, held her like this, started to read her the book, and I got 3 pages in and she began to cry. And I was like, this is unacceptable. I wrote this book. Here's your respect. And I was like, okay, I told my wife, I was like, you know what, it's late right now. These aren't her best hours. Maybe we'll put her to bed and I'll get her in the morning. Those are her best hours. So we put her to bed. I woke up before her. I was waiting for her to wake up. That never happens. And I was so excited. So I put her back in the reading pocket at like 6:15 a.m. I began to read her the book, and she started crying again. So now, obviously, she lives with a family in Detroit. I sent her a message. No, I'm just kidding. We hung on to her, but it took about 4 months for her to like this book. So, CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus and all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. I love when I go to schools, I tell them, do you guys see the straw that the tree is drinking from? Because if you can see it, you understand the whole book. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals, watched the rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" "Boy, what do we need a car for?" "We got a bus that breathes fire, and old Mr. Dennis, who always has a trick for you." The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged, and the doors swung open. "What's that I see?" Mr. Dennis asked. He pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear, placed it in his palm. Nana laughed her deep laugh and pushed CJ along. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tuning a guitar. An old woman with curlers had butterflies in a jar. Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon. She made sure CJ did the same. The bus lurched forward and stopped, lurched forward and stopped. Nana hummed as she knit. "How come we always gotta go here after church?" CJ said. "Miguel and Colby never have to go nowhere." "I feel sorry for those boys," she told him. "They'll never get a chance to meet Bobo or the Sunglass Man. And I hear Trixie got herself a brand new hat." CJ stared out the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched cars zip by on either side, watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. CJ gave up his seat. "How come that man can't see?" "Boy, what do you know about seeing?" Nana told him. "Some people watch the world with their ears." "That's a fact. Their noses too," the man said, sniffing at the air. "That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am." Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed her deep laugh. 2 older boys got on next. CJ watched as they moved on by and stood in back. "Sure wish I had one of those," he said. Nana set down her knitting. "What for? You got the real life thing sitting across from you. Why don't you ask the man if he'll play us a song?" CJ didn't have to. The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. To feel the magic of music, the blind man whispered, I like to close my eyes. Nana closed hers too. So did CJ and the spotted dog. By the way, Christian, good work on that dog. It's my favorite illustration. And in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus, out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves, saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full, and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. The song ended, and CJ opened his eyes. Everyone on the bus clapped, even the boys in back. Nana glanced at the coin in CJ's palm. CJ dropped it in the man's hat. Last stop on Market Street, Mr. Dennis called. CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. Crumbling sidewalks and broken down doors, graffiti-tagged windows and boarded up stores. He reached for his Nana's hand. How come it's always so dirty over here? She smiled and pointed to the sky. Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what's beautiful. CJ saw the perfect rainbow arcing over their soup kitchen. He wondered how his Nana always found beautiful where he never even thought to look. He looked all around them again, at the bus rounding the corner out of sight, and the broken street lamps still lit up bright, and the stray cat shadows moving across the wall. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, I'm glad we came. He thought his Nana might laugh her deep laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, me too, CJ, now come on. And as you can see, they're serving at the soup kitchen, they're not eating there. And then here's a little controversial fact. So here is CJ with his grandmother, and he's reading a book, and it's orange. And this cover is orange. So I said to Christian not too long ago, I said, how cool is that? You had CJ reading Last Up on Market Street. And he said, actually, the cover at that point was white. So it wasn't, that's not actually true. And I totally ignore him. So I tell every school, he's reading Last Up on Market Street. And I just wanted to point out a couple things, and then I would love to turn to you guys to take questions. So first of all, I love things that are sort of exploring deeper things, and if a teacher wants to unpack it with their students, they can find a deeper level. One of the most important lines of this book, nobody ever talks about, and it's this line right here, they sat right up front. That's an incredibly important line to the book. It tells you everything about this grandmother, and nobody really talks about it. But I like that, because it's just sitting there if you want to unpack it. Another thing about this book I wanted to point out, originally, I was very interested in the idea of a boy growing up without his parents. And actually, much of the story in my very first draft was about that. But then I realized, I was like, you know what, I'm trying to do too much in this book. This is a picture book, I don't have that much room. I don't have that much space. So I pulled back on that, but I left one line that's purely for me, because that's really part of the story to me. And so it's this line, he saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, kind of dreaming of having a family, you know, a nuclear, traditional family. And then I think one of my favorite illustrations is this reveal of, you know, you're a better witness for what's beautiful if you're surrounded by dirt, and then getting the rainbow. So that's one of my favorite illustrations. But I'll turn to you guys. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've talked about or the book itself?